we not leaders, or are we female leaders? And is there a difference? Like, do female leaders show up different to male leaders?
Leadership is everything. It's everything. How you order a coffee, you can show leadership in that. Be truly yourself and lead with your guiding principle.
This is how I see the world. When you're doing leadership, you're trying to do a painting, but you're giving everyone else the paintbrush.
There is a role for women, female leaders, to lead other women.
And you can exist as your whole authentic self.
Even in crisis, be consistently yourself, even if your technique, your style, your leadership style is to go, shit.
You're going to get found out at some point. To be transparent, really focus on what's important to you for your stage in life.
I went in the bathroom and I cried.
My name is Sonya Barlow. I am a One Club ambassador, so thank you again for having me. I'm going to give you a little bit of context as to who I am. I started my tech career in 2015. Turns out I was a little bit too ambitious for the corporate workspace, so they let me go twice. I didn't want to make it 3 out of 3, so I started a business. I was lonely, so I started a brunch club called the LMF Network and moved it into a business. In 5 years, we have upskilled over 100,000 people with a 90% success rate. So we're a inclusion consultancy and a careers platform. Somewhere along the line, I also dabbled as an award-winning BBC presenter, an author of Unprepared to Entrepreneur. Currently, I'm living a very slow and intentional life, so I'm actually just learning how to cook, swim, and be just a better partner and daughter, to be honest with you. And as of next month, I will be an editor of a new tech magazine called Travel and Tech.
Hi everybody, great to be here. I'm Elizabeth Cowper. I have had a career of 30 years in HR, 25 in the corporate world, and the last 5 years running my business called Ludo. And we had a tech solution, which is like a modern day EAP for driving support for fertility, menopause, maternity and health. But I've just offloaded part of that, and now I'm doing fractional HR and coaching, so you could call it a partial exit, which is all quite exciting for me. Did you want me to answer the question about the worst leadership I've ever had?
Please.
Yeah. I was told not to talk about my kids because it was distracting and it wasn't going to let me be focused as a leader. And I actually did that and then took that whole piece of really shitty advice. Are we allowed to swear? Oh, good. To another company, and 2 years in, I was somewhere and someone said, have you got kids? And I said, yeah, I do actually. I had 2 then, I've got 3 now. And this person next to me who'd worked with me for 2 years went, you have kids? And I realised how messed up it was that I'd taken this advice on and not taken my whole authentic self to work. And that then drove a whole lot of other stuff that I then did later in my life in terms of being a female leader.
Brilliant. Nice to meet you. It's Tina Valand. So I am one of the co-founders of Women in Alliances. Women in Alliances was set up to help people who are in roles during the lockdown. So first day of the UK lockdown is when we set it up. Basically, it was around where you're working in an ecosystem role. So if there's a tech partner that has to work with a fintech or another company, bringing those together and having those skill sets. I also work in generative AI, so it's leading tech at the moment, getting into the unknown. And then very recently have become an entrepreneur and supporting businesses. So Black Sheep Coffee, launching a vodka brand called Desi Daru, also support fintechs as well on their strategy. Have 2 kids, so trying to juggle all of those things is super important to me. And glad to be here today to talk a bit more about leadership and the journey that I went to. If you told me 2 years ago that I would be on a panel talking about leadership, it would have been quite a surprise to my old self. And to answer the question around the worst advice, I would probably say it's do what that person did. There is no one way to do this. You really have to understand yourself and then get into what's going to make you a leader.
Hi, I'm Julia Duthie. My day job now is I work in private equity value creation. And I do that, I guess, because I've run a lot of businesses. So I've been a CEO 3 times. I've had a startup. I've worked in multinationals. But my big claim to fame is I left home at 16 and I left school at 16. And my first job was in a market store selling fruit and veg. So I am that kind of story of, coming up through a very different pathway. And I'm also a writer. I'm a best-selling author and I'm a podcast host. And the worst advice I was ever given was there are no friends in business. And I ignored it completely and made some of the best friendships and relationships and continue to do so in business. So that was my worst advice, and I ignored it completely. There we are.
Thank you. I'd love to know who we have in the room with us. So show of hands if you are a full-time business entrepreneur. Show of hands if you're an investor. These are the people with the money. Look at where they are. Hands up if you are in corporate 9 to 5 but have that entrepreneurial spirit. Hands up if you are here because a friend said that there was drinks. There's a few. Look, there's always a few. I love your honesty and transparency. That's why we're here. Who have I missed out? Hands up if you have not attended a One Club event before. Welcome. There's a lot of you. I am an ambassador. I have been here for several years now. And I love having these discussions for no other reason than we really get into it. We have a great time. And so that's what I meant in the beginning is ask the questions, get involved, share your deep thoughts with us. But also build your network. So a few years ago, I made this rule called the 3-2-1 rule of networking. Talk to 3 people, connect with 2, follow up with 1. Over the course of the year, that's 12 to 36 new connections and people that could change your life. That goes on to the fact that obviously you were told, don't make friends in business. One thing that struck to me as I've been sitting here, and I'm going to go off topic because we had some questions, but I kind of think out loud, is the fact that this is a female leadership panel. And I don't know where I sit on the stance, because are we not leaders or are we female leaders? And is there a difference? Like, do female leaders show up different to male leaders? And so I'd love the panel to unpack that a little bit. Are we different? Should we be different? Is the connotation different? Like, what does it really mean? And I think we'll just go backwards, because you already have the mic.
It's a tricky one, because on the one hand, you do want to be helpful for people who are coming up through the ranks who are much, I do feel an obligation to sort of help younger women, and I advocate and I ally for a lot of women coming through sort of junior ranks. And you want to have an identity and say, oh, I'm a female leader, I'm a female entrepreneur, or whatever it might be. But at the same time, as me, I've always just identified as Julia first. So I am as complex and multifaceted and multidimensional as anybody. And I have, values and principles and learned experience and lived experience that makes me uniquely me. So I don't really like to lead with the female thing, because then I suppose it comes with connotation. People then, I suppose you do get sort of immediately, I don't know, expectations are different of how you are going to be. And if I look back on my own leadership, and I think leadership is everything. It's everything. How you order a coffee, you can show leadership in that. But if you have a leadership role, my main thing is just be truly yourself and lead with your guiding principles. And some might say that women have certain attributes and expectations on them for those attributes, such as good communicators, or maybe they are seen as more compassionate, or perhaps more inclusive, and all the kind of things that we're associated with women. But at the same time, there's so much more, and you can say that for male leaders too. I think the good news is everything's moving towards a leadership style that typically is more female orientated. There's a lot of conversation at the moment about what are they calling it now? The light. You have the dark triad and the light triad. Has anyone heard about this? Is that it? Have I got that right? This is good news. People are talking about that a lot, aren't they? They're saying the Machiavellian sort of narcissistic leadership style, typically associated with, Wolf of Wall Street types. Sorry if you're that. That's having a bit of a challenge. And actually, it's the light triad that people are very interested in at the moment. That's humanitarianism. It's more kind of inclusive. It's more whole person, wholehearted. And, as a female leader, naturally plays to people's expectations of me. So, on the one hand, no, I don't like to lead with it. Personally, I'm Julia first. I always think about my dog in that way. Animal, dog. I'm the reverse of it, actually. Animal, dog, breed, fluffy little thing, Maggie. But if you flip it, I'm Julia first, and then I come down, then you get to my gender. So that's how I feel about it. But at the same time, I also feel I have an obligation because I'm already in a successful position. I need to bring other women with me.
I guess I've had a bit of a different experience because I was in a very tech-orientated world, probably 20 years now. So when I first started, for me, leadership looked like being told what to do and be quiet and just get on with it. And that's kind of what I tried to pick out and aspire to be, and it just wasn't me, and it wasn't the natural leadership style that I ever fit into. So I'll be quite transparent. It wasn't much later in my life that I actually understood what leadership meant. And I got into tech because I liked art. So this is how I see the world. When you're doing leadership, you're trying to do a painting, but you're giving everyone else the paintbrush. You might get people going in a bit of a different direction to what you envisioned, but as long as you can set the tone of where you want to head, who your teammates are, and if you find that random person who's got a really bad brush, get rid of them because it's just going to not make your picture a good scene. And in the workplace where I've been, I think there are certain attributes that have been kind of polarized to say, okay, you know, a guy does this, a girl does that. But it takes a while to build that within yourself. So my leadership style came from me working at who I was and the things that worked for me. So the one thing I ask of you is find out the one thing that people tell you not to do, and that's going to be your superpower. So for me, that was empathy. I felt everything in the room. If someone was talking, they made a comment about my hair, they said I wasn't good in a workshop, that night I went home and those thoughts were for my pillow. Every day, why did I say this? What did I do? Recuperate that. As I kind of developed and kind of gained my career and a bit more confidence, I found that the fact that I know how people feel is the strength and style for my leadership. And I encourage you guys to do that as well.
It's a good question. My thoughts on this as someone who's managed teams in an HR capacity in businesses is that leadership is leadership, and this idea that there's female leadership, we don't need to define it. There might be female or masculine, feminine or masculine traits that we all carry, and that's not about gender. So everybody has feminine and masculine inside of them, and we can dial those up and down as and when we want to. Where female leadership sits for me is that we are still in a world where, sadly, I don't want to doom and gloom the room, we are so far off getting gender parity, closing the gender pay gap, kicking the patriarchy up the arse. We're so far off that actually there is a role for women, female leaders, to lead other women. And so this concept of women being role models, ambassadors, mentors, and really shining the light to have other women rise up through the ranks, for me, is massive. And that, to me, is female leadership. But it's more in a sort of specific way of how we can really inspire. We have 5 generations in the workplace now. And we suddenly have completely new dimensions if you look at the different generations of what a woman in her 60s is motivated by versus a woman in her 20s. And so how those women who have gone all the way through the ranks can inspire the younger generations to come through who have totally different motivators and values sometimes. That's the power, I think, of how we can really use what I would say is female leadership to win in the workplace.
And what I'm really taking away from this is representation really does matter. And that's probably why I also posed the question was, as a female leader, I'm a female, I have ADHD, I have chronic migraines, I'm British Pakistani, I'm the eldest of 4 in my siblings, I'm the eldest kid in my family. All of those identities are really important for me to bring up because there are not many of me that exist in spaces. So how do you influence the next generation? It's by letting them know that actually we exist. Our many facets exist, and you can exist as your whole authentic self, but understanding what your version of identity and authenticity is, but also allowing yourself to evolve. I did a post on LinkedIn just yesterday that had no relation to this panel, but now it really does, where I said, rest is not a luxury, rest is a leadership tool. The point being that there's a study from the University of Heidelberg, I think in Germany, that says if you take yourself offline for 3 days, it can help to rewire your brain, enhance focus, reduce anxiety, and come up with new ideas. But when I first started becoming a leader in 2020, when I started a business, and somehow I went from, I was your colleague yesterday and today I'm a CEO, right? No one really gives you that training either. I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't own my leadership. I didn't know my leadership style, but I tried to mimic other people's leadership styles. And Tina, you made a great point. You said people, yes, have their paintbrush, but you kind of have to take away the brush when people aren't figuring it out or working it out. So I'd love to know, when's that moment that I am a leader, so I have to act like a leader, really hit you? Because for me, I hired people, but I think I was trying to be their mentor more than their leader. I was like, come, I'll teach you. We can build a business together. Oh my gosh, I don't want to let you go. Oh my God, I love you. I'm like your older sister. And I'm like, but really I'm not. Do you know what I mean? I'm your boss. It's very different. I'm your leader. I need to lead by design. But I got that really wrong in the first couple of years of my business, which then obviously impacted productivity and profitability and all the other P's that exist. But you live and you learn. But I think that was the moment where I was like, wait, I am a leader because not only am I running a business, but now I have to let these people go because I made the wrong choice of hiring them to begin with. And that's when leadership hit me. When did I am a leader, so I have to do this thing that's really difficult, but I have to do it now, hit you?
I guess for me it was during lockdown. So, you know, climate's changed. If you have existential events that happen that are outside of your control, that is the kind of trigger for having to make those hard decisions. And I'll give you an example of what happened. You know, I joined a new firm, we were talking through all the sort of hiring capabilities, and then suddenly overnight we're dealing with no laptops being able to be delivered, people not being able to go into the office. And what you learn from that sort of experience is that you have to make difficult decisions, and they can be uncomfortable. And it's not the actual decision itself that can be of discomfort. It's when you go home and you think about that person's career. They may have had kids. There's an impact that is being made. So dealing with that in your own conscious, especially being an empath, I think is really difficult. The other thing is keep an eye on the numbers. Like, no one tells you this. Like, look at the numbers every day. You have people that you trust around the profitability, your accounts, but definitely look at them. There's so many ways, especially in tech, that you can look at those numbers easily. And I guess the final bit is don't forget about the people in this situation. There is nothing worse than treating people like a number. They will remember that, and you don't know where you'll see those people again. So if you are making difficult decisions, do them in the right way for the person's style. You know, if there's something, you know, your team member, they like to be talked to, talk to them. If there's someone who wants to be left alone, leave them alone. Try to understand your team and try to communicate in a way that is respectful of the...
I think first time I really felt my responsibility as a leader, I mean, I totally resonate with the thing you're saying, Tina Valand, was when I'd had a bad morning and walked into the office differently. And within minutes, the whole organisation was buzzing. What's happened? What's up with Julia? And I realised that people watch you all the time. If you're the leader, if there's people they've entrusted their career with you, they're looking to you to know the answers. They're looking you to have, you know, take responsibility for the business, and they trust you. And you're having an off moment, which is perfectly fine. I totally believe in vulnerability and just being my fullest self. But it did strike me as like, oh wow, you know, if I walk in slightly differently, it has impact and people notice. So it made me realise then that all eyes were on me, and I didn't really think about it before, because I suppose my leadership style is very servant orientated. It's like, what can I do for you today? How can I help you? How can I make this better? But of course, the other flip side of that is they look to you for strength. They look to you for certainty. They look to you for knowing that assuredity, that confidence that if Julia says it's going to be all right, it's going to be. And if Julia says it's not going to be all right, we get in the boat with her and we help. So these are things that take... I totally agree with what Tina's saying. You can't build that up by just saying the words. The only way you get your team to follow you, by definition as a leader, you have people following you, is by taking the time to really know the people around you and have them really know you, and most importantly, know yourself. Because you have to know yourself before you can lead anyway. If you don't know yourself, you'll be all over the place. You'll be like, oh, this thing's happened, I'm going to be that person. Oh, hang on a minute, there's that, now I'm that person. And the most important thing as a leader is to be consistent. If you are not consistent, people will sniff it and they'll say, she doesn't know what she's doing. So even in crisis, be consistently yourself, even if your technique, your style, your leadership style is to go, shit, guys, we have a problem. But, you know, be consistent in that. Be the collaborative person that brings people in. But anyway, yeah, it did hit me. And I was very much more aware of my impact from then on of even my non-verbal walking through the business. People are watching you.
Like all sorts of ideas came in my head when you asked that question. I think for me, bizarrely, is actually when I had my first child. I had her in my 20s, and I was doing a job. I had a team of 2. I was managing a little team in my company, but I didn't really think of myself as a leader. And then all in the same year, I was leading a team, leading a house, leading a baby, and then suddenly leading my way through life just was like slapped me in the face, like a massive moment of like, my gosh, you know, I'm naturally like, blah, 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 let's go. And I feel that I can naturally sort of inspire and bring people on the journey when I'm excited about something. But that's not enough. And I think that in exhaustion of sleep deprived, trying to hold down a job, run a house, blah, 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 I just had this real moment of, what are you actually doing? And what does it mean to lead as a mummy, lead in your job? And that was when I went and trained as a coach. And it was a deliberate moment of, I want to know how to do this better. So there was a real awakening in that year. Yeah, when Tallulah was born, was my big like...
So what I'm hearing is be intentional. Get to know your leadership style, see if it works with people around you, but also get to know them. Something we used to do in our businesses and we do with corporates is we create a cheat sheet of everyone that comes into the organization. Here's a really simple one-pager of this person. It has everything from when your birthday is to your star sign, you know, what you like to drink when you don't. But also for me, as a leader, listen, I am the type of person that if you don't put an agenda in the calendar invite or you message me saying we need to speak, it will freak me out and I run the business. You know what I mean? PTSD and past trauma from businesses that have done that to me, you're just thinking everyone's coming for you, which is not healthy at all. So doing the healing and working in yourself, but also letting your team know that actually when you're putting meetings or agendas in, when we're doing catch-ups, make sure it's intentional. Make sure there's a takeaway. Come with a takeaway. What do you want to take away from this? The same question I asked the panel. What do you want to take away from this opportunity? And what do you want people to take away from you? I asked them the exact same thing because it's a two-way relationship. But that's what you're building, and always be open to improving. I also always thought about having a leader advisory board. Your trusted network, hopefully some people from the One Club now, outside of your day-to-day, who you can go and lean on just to say, look, what are the qualities that you like about me? Where can I improve? This is what's happened in terms of scenario. What would your advice be? Before I go back to the panel, I want to invite a question from the floor. We have about 7 seconds of attention in us. We've been here for about 20 minutes, right? I can see some of you are going and doom scrolling on your phone. I'm going to bring you back, my friend. That's what true leadership is. Reading the room. A question. Love that. I'm going to bring a mic to you so that we can actually... thank you.
Who has it?
It was the lady with the money at the front. Here. Oh, that's not what you put your hand up for before. Oh. Oh, I take that mic away now.
No, it's been such an interesting conversation so far. And so I work in the tech space, and someone in a really big tech company said to me, I think she's in her 50s, and she said to me, the biggest regret that I ever have a partner, and at the time that I was building my career, because I thought I couldn't have both. And she was like, don't ever make that mistake. So I'm always constantly looking at women that are, that I've chosen to have kids, or even that have not chosen to have kids. How do you navigate that and your career? I know that's quite a complex question, but just because...
Mate, we're here for the deep questions, I told you. I love that for us. I'm going to expand it a little bit and invite everyone to the room and ask you the question in terms of, I think what I'm hearing you say is, how do you navigate your career with the choices that you can make and then the choices you choose not to make? We were actually, interestingly, having a very similar conversation pre-panel, because that's something that I was discussing. So when you're thinking about this idea of choices, be that kids, be that a partner, be that choosing not to have kids and a partner, be that choosing to show up here on a Tuesday, right? Whatever that might be, how do you navigate that with your career?
I so want to answer this question. I'm like, let me speak!
I could feel it. I had to stop.
Part of the reason I left corporate 5 years ago is because my last corporate role was at Tapestry, who owned Coach, Kate Spade and Stuart Weitzman. And I was their global head of wellbeing and inclusion, and on their inclusion committee. And we did so much work around this. around how you really support women through key life moments, whether it's having a baby or the menopause, because we know we've got big impacts on women's careers. You know, women, don't even start me on the gender pay gap that then has a knock-on of women having smaller pensions, less money to invest, blah, 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 blah. I won't go on that rant. So this is a really huge topic for me. I had 2 babies in my 20s and I had 1 at 40. And every single one of them, all 3 of them, hit my career in different ways. And I didn't really know it until I had my first, that I was going to become that woman that really wanted to do something about this in the workplace. And it unconsciously at first, and then more consciously, became a bit of my life mission, literally. And my company that's called Ludo now used to be called WOMO, as in working mother, WOMO. We changed the title because it wasn't actually inclusive in the end, but that's another story. So this whole way in which we can champion companies to totally and utterly support, engage, listen, talk to, create safe spaces for women to create the next generation, because that's what we're doing, without any kind of pain for their career, is something we have to keep talking about, because we've got a lot of work to do. I work with companies on this all the time, but we have got to keep talking about it. So part of your question was about how do you know when it's the right time to do it, I think. It's like whenever you like, quite frankly. And then really champion, but own your journey. And I will finish on this little point, sorry, I could go on all day. But what I've seen as an HR leader is women quite often come forward when they're having a baby, their first baby typically, and they say, I'm pregnant, what do I get? What's going to happen to me? You know, and they come into the meeting on the back foot. The best meetings I have is when a woman comes in and says, I'm pregnant. I'm going to take a year. I want to start my recruitment for my cover on this day. This is how it's going to work. I want you to contact me every 2 weeks. I want to be invited in for all my kit days. I might take off longer. I don't know yet, but this is my plan. Own it. Like, really own your journey. And those meetings are the best because companies are actually really useless and a little bit terrified on how they should handle that conversation. So own your journey, handle it for them, and just go at it and own your whole self as a mama.
For me, I think there's not actually one answer to it. So I've been in situations where, you know, someone's come back to work after a month. It depends on how they feel. Me personally, my story is that I actually worked 3 days for 5 years in the tech space, which was super difficult to navigate. I'm only here on this stage because of the support system that I have. People in the room today, my husband, my coach, my friends have helped me through that, my parents even, to get me to the place that I need to be. But I think the key to it is some of the things you can do in the workplace to support, and find an organisation that will help you with that. You can have your viewpoint of what you want to do and how you want to have the next stage in your life. But if you don't work for an organisation that champions that, has the maternity policies in place, has someone reaching out to you, can you get promoted while you're away with your kids? Does it have a flexible working policy? Is there someone there who's going to be championing any issues that you have? If you don't work for it, or you don't have the flexibility to do that, then it's very difficult. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, it's a bit of a different situation. So my sort of viewpoint on it is you can't do everything. You're going to have to, for the life goals that you want to achieve, have the support system, and that's a give and take. So find the people that are championing you, find the people that are going to support you, and try to find where you'll go to your next stage and who's going to be there kind of speaking on your behalf. Because in the workplace, you know, I've been judged for leaving early, doing things that are, you know, having to go in late, etc. But it's the outcomes that you get really judged for. So as long as you stay true to your outcomes and be transparent, don't lie about the things that you're doing, you're going to get found out at some point. So be transparent, really focus on what's important to you for your stage in life. And please, if you see someone who looks like how you did 5 years ago, so if I see someone coming back from maternity, or if someone's really struggling with their role, just help them. Because the more we help other people, that supports the next generation of talent.
Yeah, I guess I've got 2 grown-up children and bigger kids, bigger problems, just saying. Anybody here who's thinking it's all over once they're in their 20s, it's not. And I look back on I went through those horrible 80s and early 90s where I remember the first time I needed to go home because one of my children had a fever. The CFO of that particular company said, and I said, oh, I need to go. That's right. He said, but isn't there someone at home? And I said, yeah, there's someone at home. My mother-in-law's at home, and but I'm his mum. I want to go home and look after him. And he said, you gave up the right to motherhood when you took this job. And I went in the bathroom and I cried. I actually cried because I thought he's right. In that era, it was a stark choice. And I made that choice, and I do deeply regret lots of what I missed. I think roll the clock forward 20-odd years, and I think employers and that are now seeing the value of the power of women who are going through the experience of motherhood, because it brings so much value to the business. I mean, you really grow up fast when you're responsible for life. I thought PowerPoint was hard, I thought board meetings were hard. I thought, I felt very self-important running an organisation. And then I had a baby, and I absolutely just floored me. The level of responsibility, it is life or death. And I didn't really appreciate it. I was probably not very sensitive to the women in my life that I was responsible for back then. And then it changed everything when I had my own children. So I feel a deep responsibility now, and I help people who are making that decision. And I totally agree with what the guests here say, which is, you do have to own it. You do have to decide it for yourself. It's nobody's business, really, when you have a child. We have to encourage women, particularly accomplished women, because if we don't create an environment where women can have children, I've got a son. I'd like him to find a partner that wants to have a kid with him. If all the women are going, no, thanks, you know what I mean? We're going to have a society of very few mothers. And mothers are great, aren't they? They know so much. They have empathy and caring, and they understand people. And I said to someone the other day, I said, he said, why are women such natural communicators? I said, well, they don't speak for the first 3 years, and we have to know them. We have to work it out. So we do have some innate qualities. And I don't like to generalise, but as a business owner, some of you own your businesses, sometimes you might look at a woman of childbearing age and go, there's a year off right in there. But it's worth it. Because if you support that woman through her career, and she comes out the other side, first of all, she's going to feel great towards you as a business. And she's going to come out the other side better than she went in, because she's learning a huge amount during that process of raising a child. I mean, the other thing to point out is that a lot of the times women are really hitting their stride at times when organisations start to make decisions about who's going to get the promotions. And I'm really going to encourage people who have decision-making here to really think about that. Could you change it? Could you make it so that it isn't everybody gets made partner in their 30s? Because it's a little bit stacked against us. Because I do a lot of mentoring in my firm, and I particularly look after women who are coming through that journey. And it's heartbreaking to watch these incredibly talented women who've invested hugely in their education, and they're deeply passionate and very talented. And they sit there and they feel it's a stark choice. And the firm loses them because they make it hostile. And my firm's now learned that women come in very strong phases of development. Men are typically linear. You have biorhythms and hormones, apparently, same. And men are multifaceted and complex creatures, and again need to be seen and heard, and all the things that every individual needs. But there are some biological changes that women go through that if men can learn. I mean, most women didn't know what menopause was 2 years ago. We were just not allowed to talk about it. And if you had an older woman in your life, they said it was hot flushes. And you were like, well, that looks easy. I'm telling you, it's not just hot flushes. But if men took the time to really understand women and sort of work on the power of them through their reproductive stages and embrace it, those women will bring so much depth and quality to your business, and so much depth to you as men. If you really learn women, when we are underrepresented in business, but if you get to know us, we're all right. We bring some good stuff.
And we make you a lot of money, mate. Actually,
we do.
We do. The stats tell you that we make you 33% more.
Because we cost less. No, I'm joking.
She's going to mic drop just there. This is a conversation we wanted. I'm just going to add two things there. One, because I am probably the only person who doesn't have kids, but I'm on that journey of understanding if I even wanted kids. Because I come from an Asian culture and I'm very blessed that no one in my life pressures me, but society kind of does. So for the last few years, I have spent time with parents and mothers, and I go to networking events where I'm the only one without a kid in the whole room, and I listen to them and I learn from them and I ask them questions, and I'm like, how do you balance? What do you do? What do you even do? What did your day look like? Obviously, thank you for terrifying me, because I'm trying to convince my partner to have a baby. You're telling me that life with kids only gets more problematic.
Terrible.
I'm not going to let him watch this podcast because, that conversation is there. I thought after 18 you could just leave them.
God, no. They get super expensive as well.
And then trust me, in our culture, not only do they get expensive, they have to look after you when you get older, So culture plays a big part. But I guess to your point, there's two things. One is if you're thinking about that journey, research, ask people, stay curious. People like to share their stories. And so the sentiment is, you don't know what you don't know. But if you're a business, policy is where it's at. You need to make people feel that they are not only worthy, but they're valued. What do your policies look like? How can they keep progressing even if they're not in the business? How can they come back into the business? What are the career programs that you have in place? And how not to other them? We're already othered, Sometimes othering makes you money. Like in 2020, 2021, it was very lucrative for people who are others. Right now, it's not. But being othered means that you're alone and you're lonely and you don't have that version of belonging. And that leads me on to a really interesting question before I bring it back into the panel. So this is the last question for me, I hope. How is technology changing leadership? I mean, are we just going to have like little robots and AI agents that are going to take over leadership roles?
So I guess it's a really crucial time for leadership in the way that we change. So I work in generative AI. It's impacting every single thing that I'm doing, the way that I interact with people, mental health, the support that people need to do their day job. So I'm going to get a bit Black Mirror on this, because I think that disruption within the education space and leadership is going to be the two main areas where things are going to be changing. Everyone has access now to chatbot technology. Everyone's used ChatGPT. There's an element of being able to engage and create documents and images in all sorts of ways. So now your role as a leader, you're not only working with individuals that are human, but you're going to be working with individuals that are AI or agents. And bringing that together for an organization heading in one direction is going to be really difficult. The main thing around all of this is mental health, because as we've seen with social media, it has an impact. The constant needs for validation of being able to access things that you probably wouldn't have seen before in the past. And reality is that one day or very soon you could be trained by someone who doesn't exist, so Albert Einstein or Michael Jackson or Elon Musk. And those training programs are going to be accessible to your kids to be able to be read out to you, or in any format. You could have Rihanna reading it out to you. However you're going to absorb that content. So the main thing around that is having the policies in place to be able to kind of control that, whether that's you personally with the individuals that you know, trying to kind of share that information, or if you work for an organization, making sure that you don't get caught out by the AI piece that's coming. And I guess there is a good side to all of this. Everyone's always doom and gloom about, AI is going to take over our jobs. Some people say that. But I see it as a tool for helping people who have different needs. So, whether it's social mobility, whether it's ADHD, I like to learn in different ways, and we're going to be able to help children learn in different ways. So when I come to things like this, I used to get a pamphlet to read, and I can't absorb that information quickly. It's really difficult. Now you have the ability to turn that into any language. You can have it in Japanese, I could have it in Gujarati, whatever I wanted. I could have it in images in a video and play it back to me in a way that I can absorb. So being able to use AI in learning and in leadership is going to become super important. So I prompt you to kind of, a bit of a joke on the prompt thing, but I think I could have prompt you to look at the changes that are happening, but see them as tech as well as the impact on people, and try to bring that together.
Yeah, I wanted to bring in the neurodivergence piece too. I think as leaders, tech is giving us tools and abilities to do things we otherwise might have found harder in the past. I think there's also, just going back a step before you're even the leader, in the recruitment process, there are so many incredible bits of tech out there now, which allows us to remove bias in the recruitment process, which is building more diverse talent pools, more diverse workplaces, which I'm like so excited about, and they are really good. When you strip out name, date of birth, education, all that stuff, we can get really good diverse talent pools. And then if you go back, pre-tech times of when we recruited, typically people recruited people like them because they liked them and they maybe liked the same football team in the interview and they hired them. We're getting away from all of that, which creates diversity and then also allows us to really lead and manage people that don't think like us. And that's the neurodiversity piece for me, is what tools and tech can we help lead that person that thinks in a different way. And this is gold for the workplace. And I think it's a real gift to leaders to have that access to that kind of tech.
I guess I'm going to come at it from a know thyself first thing first, which is, there's a lot of technology out there now where you can really understand who you are. I mean, ChatGPT is my therapist. I literally learn a lot by going, he said that. What does this mean? What does this say about me? I don't know. I reacted this way. So there are tools out there. If you just want to have fun with it, even just play. But it's really good for sort of safe space as leaders. Again, you can't always talk to anyone. It's very lonely, isn't it, being a leader? You can't talk above you, to the side or below sometimes. But using some of these tools to kind of help you understand yourself is useful. And also recognising there's quite a lot of quite a big gap now. I had one of my colleagues, he's into his 60s, and he came to see me. He said, "Oh God, Julia, I don't understand. What do they mean by likes?" And I said, "What? You don't know what a like is?" He said, "No, I want to know it. I don't understand it. But I feel like this person just wants me to validate them all the time and kept talking about likes." And I said, "Well, welcome to the difference. Like, you're used to leading people by, example and all the good qualities. Young people now, they need validation all the time. They're used to it. They've grown up with it. So if there are, people older in the room, I count myself in this, take the time to understand what the younger phase is. If you're saying there's 5 generations in your business, they're all going to be very different, have different kind of views on it. So I think learning the tech culture of that generation that you're leading is a good investment. And I agree. I think it's going to change everything. We are going to have sort of influences from things we can't even dream of, and jobs that we can't even imagine right now, and all the things that people talk about. And I'm personally a big fan. But it's like deciding and showing leadership in what you choose for your business as well. Because you could get so overexcited by there's so many bright and shiny things out there. I would also say, is it what you need? Is it also relevant to your business? Is it actually appropriate? Back to that consistency point. If you're just looking at all the new bright and shiny toys all the time, you're going to drive your team crazy. So stuff like that. I'm not, you are far more accomplished in this area than me. But I just think from a cultural development point of view, I think we have to be tech aware at the very least.
So interestingly, Harvard Business Review did a really interesting research case study that came out, I think, a month or two ago, that said compared to 3 years ago, majority of people are now using ChatGPT for therapy and using it in a way of where they are prompting it of this is what the text message said, what does it mean? Is this email written correctly? And the Gen Zs and the talent of tomorrow, they have increasingly starting using ChatGPT to actually write their text messages, or emails before they send it to you and asking questions like, what is a sentiment? Does this sound, factually correct? What is the tone? What is the branding? So there's a lot more of validation even coming from the actual tool itself. And then secondary point being, it's interesting you have that fact, but then you have LinkedIn skill report in 2025 said the top skill that we need in 2025 is relationship building. And so it seems to be a little bit of a juxtaposition. Like, we're trying to build relationships, but we're trying to use tech to build those relationships. So we're kind of taking the human out of it. And my prediction, at least for the future of leadership, is we have to bring that human back. And a lot of it is going to be back to who we know, what we don't know, and creating that real-to-real energy and connection, because we're going to get bored to some extent of talking to robots all day, right? If they can't do my washing, like, they're kind of useless. Do you know what I mean? I need them to do what they actually need them to do. I just don't know why I'm still doing it. That's kind of my viewpoint on it, is the emotional intelligence element is really important. So I did promise that was going to be my last real question. I'm going to hand it to the floor. Any questions? Please, one here.
So, sorry. So I'm probably one of those young people who's out seeking validation and likes that you were talking about. Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I kind of had a question that was related to what you were saying about when you said that you kind of had to, you gave up being a mum by like taking the job, for example, and kind of like being a 22-year-old and being in a position where I'm like super at the start of my career and currently deciding the sacrifices I want to make to like do the things that I want to do. How do you choose what you sacrifice and what you miss at this stage of your career? And it's not like a case of work-life balance so much as it is like, making like real life decisions, like, I don't know, if it was to have a kid, not that it's a decision I've got to make, But yeah, how do you kind of choose what you're going to miss?
So it's a decision you might have to make, that, don't you?
Oh my God. Really good question. And I don't know if I was that intentional or conscious of it, to be honest. I think what that moment that I talked about where that person said what they said made me realise I was not doing the right thing. Is that me? I used to be a singer. Check, 1 2 1 2. Hello, Wembley. I think it made me realise I was not prepared to do that, actually, and I did change tack in my career, and I deliberately then chose roles that would support the what was important to me at that time, which is to be local to my children and I took a job that I could manage. So it was like that conscious decision that isn't where I was with the wrong people. And I think you have to know, back to your point about emotional intelligence, pay attention to your body. If your body's all aggy and everything's not flowing properly, you're probably not in the right company with the right people making, good use of who you are. So I think it's not about like weighing up the sacrifice, looking at the checks and balances. It's about being true to who you are. Go back to learning yourself, feeling your way, what is right for you, or your values, your principles. Who are the people who are going to support you through the imagined future that you have? Who are the people who are likely to pour scorn on it and make it not a nice thing to do? This fellow that told me I gave up motherhood was just not my people. He was never going to understand me. He's never going to understand that I wanted to do both. And I was able to then build a career with my children alongside me. And, I regret that piece because that was, they were babies and I needed to be with them. But in general, I listen to my body. I listen to how people make me feel. I listen to how I am, if I'm flourishing. If I'm not flourishing, I just change tack because it's a cliche, but life is too short. And there's 8 billion of us to go play with. You don't have to stay with people who don't get you and don't understand your life goals and don't understand where you want to be as your unique self. So no one here is going to have the same plan because no one here has got the same lived experience or same ambitions or same makeup. But I just invite everybody to, anytime you're making a big decision about anything, pay attention to how you're feeling in your body.
The one takeaway I'd love to give you is you can have it all, just not at the same time. And it's been a real life motto to me of just, I might not get that bit now, but it can come later. And I actually think my two eldest are 20 and 22, and they're really good at going, I'm going after this now, can I have that later? So just keep that in mind.
I guess for me, it's less about what you're doing. I know we've had this conversation, so there's kind of 3 pillars to it, and this is what I think has got me to where I am. The first is prioritization. You can't do everything. If you get loads of opportunities, you have only a certain number of hours in the day. If it's like going to a parents' evening, or it's to go into a talk, or it's to meet my friend for a glass of wine, whatever it is you want to prioritize, do that first. The second bit is network. Like, One Club has really supported me with the things that I've wanted to achieve, and having other people that are like-minded. But then also Women in Alliances, we founded that and kind of brought people together who are kind of supporting each other. Without those 2 networks, I don't think I'd be like here on this panel. And then I guess the final bit is, like, what is it that you need to do in the day that gives you intentional time to decide what you're going to do next? You can be on a 9 to 5, just keep going and not actually end up, 10 years down the line where you wanted to be. So mindfulness, whether it's spending some time journaling, whatever works for you, actually be intentional about where you're headed. What you don't want to do is spend 15 years in a job that you hate, or doing things that you missed out on, didn't get to travel to where you wanted to travel. So yeah, prioritize, be surrounded by people who are going to support your goals, and then finally make it happen, make the time, and be intentional about that, because life is short.
I echo all of that. I actually took your question quite differently, I think, to the rest of the panel. So my response to that was, as somebody who did, quote unquote, sacrifice quite a lot in her 20s, I put a time frame to everything. So I was like, I'm going to do this now for the next 18 months, and I communicated that to everyone. Like, when I started my business, I sat down with my partner, with my family, and I was like, look, for the next 12 to 18 months, I'm going to figure this business out, which means it's going to impact our holidays, our family time, my spending, my financing, the extracurricular that I can do with you. But if I am making 12.5K by the end of 12 months, I've met my goal, and then we'll recoup at the end and we'll go again. So know what it is that you are prioritizing. Know what success means to you, and don't compare to anyone else's, and communicate that with your network or your loved ones so they are on that journey with you. Because the last thing you want is to leave people behind and then to expect them to help you along the way. But if they are there knowing that you are hustling for this one thing right now, that's going to help you intentionally as you grow. So I took that slightly differently in terms of the panel, because I did do that in my 20s. And in 5 years, I've done everything I've wanted to do. And I achieved all my goals before I was 30. And now I'm like, oh, I sacrificed. But now I'm looking to enjoy it. What does the next 5 years look like? But at all times, it was communicating with myself, but also with the people around me. I think we have time for like 2 more questions. I'm going to let Vicky choose, because there's loads of people now with their hands up. I'm not going to be that baddie, so. And then we'll come to the last 2 afterwards, and then you can both ask the question at the same time.
I've absolutely loved it. You guys have mentioned that there is 5 generations in the workforce at the moment. We've talked about AI, and we've talked about women in leadership. Historically, women have been keeping up with the technological moves, say to everyone in the room, but especially women, that they need to look at in terms of skills for the years of their career.
So I guess firstly, the jobs that exist at the moment won't, some of them, but there are going to be jobs that are, new within the AI space. I think I see it from kind of a different perspective. I think for myself, I know potentially what's happening in the future. So there's some ownership on myself to go back to schools, to early talent, to help to influence graduate level people. So the early talent is super important. Whatever you know, please share. The second is upskilling. So, I'll talk a little bit about Women in Alliances. We have 3 pillars. So one is around legacy, so building your own brand. The second is around upskilling as well. So being able to create a community where you're sharing not only the challenges, but the good things that you've done, training programs and things like that. And then the final bit is that kind of, where do you want to take the next stage of where jobs, markets, etc. are going? And it's a really difficult question at the moment. I am a director in Gen AI. That is not the job that I did 8 months ago. I was doing data migration, testing, tech stuff. So my sort of advice for people in the room is, if you are part of communities that can help educate other people who may not have this information, go ahead and do that and be passionate about that. If there are things that you want to learn, it's so available to be able to actually bring yourself up to speed with the tech side of things. And then finally, there's so much out there and it's very confusing. There's a lot of news that can really make you feel a certain way. So the way I've broken it down is like, focus on your family. Like, what is it that's going to make your immediate circle happy? And then take some of those learnings and share them. But that's kind of my perspective on it. Things are going to change. Some things are going to change for the better. Some things are going to change for the worse. And I've seen, this is the start of the journey. So, number one, like I said, we're going to see a change in the way people learn. The second is around the bad actors as well, like educate people, your grandma, around the fact that she could be called by AI and, be subject to crime. So there's so much out there in the news, but talk to the people around you. That is really how we're going to change things in a positive way.
I suppose I look at it from if technology is going to take many of the roles that we recognised, and we are going to have a different shape of a workforce. I suppose I would say kind of pay attention to what people's expectation of work might be when we have a world where data is right there, research is right there. Everything we struggled with before is going to be right there. So then, what are the skills and attributes of being a human being that are going to be valuable, and embrace? I suppose I see it from the other end of it, which is we're going to have a different shape of work. People will come to work possibly with different motives. If their basic needs are being met by a robot at home, we can dream. I might go to work because I feel a sense of purpose, or I want to express myself in a certain way, or I want to feel that I'm making having an impact, or there could be different motivations for working. But I do also fundamentally always come back to human beings. I'm just a big fan of us. I think whatever tech does, and I love it. ChatGPT helps me out every day, but it knows its place, which is it's an enabler. It's going to be an enabler, but human beings, we still are so fascinating, so complex, so interesting. It's the most interesting part of my day, is talking to actual people about real things, real emotions, real stuff. So yes, tech is going to change the workforce. We don't know what's coming. We have an idea, but we don't really know. And just keep backing your people. Just keep investing in them. Keep up with technology, but don't take your eye off the humans in front of you, because they're the ones who enable everything anyway, and they're the bit that makes it fun. So I like fun in my work, and friends. You can have friends in business, so there.
Thank you. I mean, it sounds like everything's up for grabs, to be honest with you. It sounds like whatever you want the world to look like, that's how your world would look. But you have to take ownership of that. And that's really what I'm taking away from this panel, is female leadership, or leadership in general, or any kind of movement. You know what you want, create that focus, put in the work, tell the people around you, and see the changes that are going to be made. We've got 2 questions at the back. I'm going to ask you to ask them both at the same time. And then I'm going to just welcome our panel to answer, but kind of quickly and briefly, because I know that we've got time for networking. And I'm not timekeeping, but at some point I'm going to be told to wrap this up real quick.
Okay, so...
Fine, great, perfect.
Okay, so mine isn't really a question, it's more like a massive thank you. So my takeaways are so many today. Every day is a school day. So empathy, clarity, but also, a vision for the future and helping others. So it was just that massive thank you. I'm an educator, and I'm on the journey of, creating something where I offer my knowledge and my expertise to help others. So it was very inspirational, but we have some questions here.
Yes, I have an actual question, so thank you. But I can only second everything that was just said. I would like to hear from you what good, productive male allyship looks like, because we haven't talked about that at all.
Good one.
Thank you for asking. We thought no one would ever ask. So glad that as a male you want to. I'm sure you already do show up as an ally. The fact you showed up here is definitely a first step. So I'm going to hand it over to the panel. And please remember that we can keep our answers short and brief, because then they do have time afterwards to ask questions, and then that way you can also slide into their DMs and grab that coffee that we're talking about once a month, remember, and keep the connection going.
I'll jump into this one quickly. We run a program through Ludo called Man Ambassador, because we decided male ally was a bit less snappy. So how do you be a man ambassador? Really noticing, calling out, speaking up. We have situations that we hear about a lot in businesses where maybe you're in a meeting and that woman in the room doesn't say anything, and afterwards the guy goes to her after the meeting and says, "You didn't speak up in that meeting." Speak up in the meeting, not afterwards. So be timely. And timely is a huge thing when it comes to male allyship. Seize the moment when you're in it to actually call something out. So I know I haven't much time. That's one. I'll give you one more quickly. The other one that you can really do as a male ally is to really champion women. We know the research says it. Men listen to men more than they listen to women. Unconscious bias or conscious. Let's not go there. But really being able to champion women. So speak for them, champion them, notice great things. You know, I love the way you did that. That was so good. And then tell another man about it.
You use your social capital. You've got quite a lot of it. To sponsor women, notice them, bring them forward. Use your place and your kind of, if you want to talk about some sort of natural attributes and privileges, to your point about being listened to and respected more, use that that is your social capital. You have a choice. You can turn to the women in your business and say, I'm going to help you. I can see that you're struggling to be seen and heard, and perhaps get the same attention as the men in the room. But again, back to more existential things, is like, just be a friend to us. Know us, get to know us, like us. We're really nice. And as I say, we're multifaceted, we're interesting, we're spiritual, we're powerful, we're very deep and interesting. And I think I speak to a lot of men who go, "Oh, I just find women a bit intimidating, frankly." And I'm like, "Really? We're really scared of you." And I think that and it shocks men sometimes. They don't really understand that especially, here's one. Men. I said to some men in my life recently, I said, if you want to know what it's like to walk into a boardroom, and I've been in many boards, or even a meeting that's full of men, join a yoga class. You've done that thing, haven't you? You've gone into a yoga class and gone, "Oh shit, it's all full of women. I don't feel comfortable here. I'm going to go at the back and hope nobody notices me. And gosh, I hope I don't break wind." So I think that's my men's, when I speak to men about what is it like to go into a yoga class, they get it. They go, "That's such a female space." And they go, "Wow, I didn't know really what you meant." So knowing that it's as uncomfortable for us. When we walk into a room full of male energy, it's intimidating, because we don't have the natural kind of rapport with you. We don't know quite how to talk about the game or man things, but we really like you too. I love men. I've got so many male friends, and I find men fascinating, as interesting as every other woman. And I don't know, take the time to know us and invite us in to your world too. We're not separate. We are just as fascinating and fascinated by you all. So on an existential level, we all have an obligation to reach across the room and talk to people as individuals, as opposed to this gender parity that keeps going on at the moment. We have these sides being, a polarity, I should say. We have polarity everywhere at the moment. Take the time to have the courage to go, what's it like being a bloke? It's quite hard, I imagine. Especially at the moment, everyone thinks you suck. So, and you don't. And you can't carry the burden of 1,000 years of things you weren't even there for. But you are a bit carrying that. So women, reach out to the men and talk to them about what it's like for them. Get to know them, and vice versa. That's all I would say.
As a consequence of the Me Too movement, 80% of men do not want to have one-to-one with their female colleagues, which is a really high number. But at the same time, I listen to this panel and I think I've had such a different experience, because I'm not intimidated by men. If anything, it's actually male allies. Probably a male ally because I'm here today. Akshay is here. I am here because he invited me here. Do you know what I mean? I get promotions because men have said, you've got something. Let's see how you can get that promotion, or signed off the partnership. So I think it's the opposite. I think it's more, whatever you're doing with men, just do it with women. Do you know what I mean? You're already doing the work. Just stop generalizing us to start with. And the second thing is, be really transparent. When you know that you are earning 50k and we're earning 30k, stop beating around the bush and be like, mate, I'm earning 50, we're doing the same job. Why don't we build a plan together so you can go earn that 52? It's not coming out of your pocket. Always remember that nothing is coming out of your pocket. So the information you have, share that information. Be transparent. Give us the tools and resources to boost us up. Speak about us in the rooms. But the best examples I can give you is male allies who genuinely make introductions on LinkedIn or in emails to say, Sonya would be a great speaker. Sonya is somebody that you should take into your business. Have you considered? 80% of recommendations come from word of mouth. Social capital, men definitely do have that as leverage. Give yourself a challenge every month. One email introduction, one LinkedIn introduction, one like, one share, one subscribe. Do you know what I mean? That's male allyship to start with. Those are tiny steps. I'm simplifying it, but that's kind of what we're going to compound. Do we have any more questions? I'm going to bring Tina in just a second as well.
We're going to have to let Afsal off.
Hi, thank you so much for today. It's amazing. About 20 years ago, I was invited to volunteer at DASRO, which was a charity empowering women and women and girls in poor countries. Volunteering there, and I noticed there were men there with suits and had a lot of money, and they were donating large amounts. And I spoke to the trustee and said, how did you get so many men in? And she said to me, there's two types of men. There's men with daughters and there's men without. I don't know if that was a premonition or it was coincidence. Many years on, I've got 2 teenage daughters now. And I love them to bits. I want them to be the best. They're highly creative, really impressive. And when they had problems in school, I'd give them solutions and it didn't work. So now they're teenagers, they're going into womanhood and they're looking for careers. Question to the panel is this: how do I help turn my women into leaders without turning them into men?
I guess I can give my perspective because I have a daughter. I think the most important thing is to give them the space to establish who they are. Because, we all come with baggage from the past about how our parents treated us or what we've been through, the impact that little comments have made along the way. Both of my kids have started looking at their own businesses just purely because it helps me to establish what their passions are. So my daughter, she's set up her own crochet page. I know she's creative. It makes me really understand what her kind of aspirations in life are. My son is into music, he wants to be a DJ, he wants to do beats. So I would answer it in a different way. I'd probably be looking at ways in which that you can communicate that doesn't involve asking them, what do you want to do, where do you want to be, what's the leadership style? Because we all go to work, and I've been into work like 9 to 5 and been bored off my head. That's not the life that I want for my kids. I want them to be inspired to do the next generation of whatever they aspire to do. And I got that very late. I was doing 9 to 5 for ages. It was only very late in life that I had that space to create that space to have the conversation about what their aspirations and dreams are. And then the other is surround them with people who you think or they think are where they want to be. Because if you don't see role models in the spaces that you look at, like my daughter drew like space, she wanted to go into space. Do you see that many examples of it? Unless, apart from recently when we had Katie Pope go up and things like that. So we don't know. But yeah, create a space where you're seeing examples, surround them with people who are going to give them a positive impact. and never forget to ask if they're okay. That is the thing that I worry about the most. Are they happy? It doesn't really matter if they're going to be a leader. It doesn't matter if they're going to kind of get to their kind of aspirations. It's like, do they wake up happy? So many of us probably woke up day after day not in that space, and that's more important than anything else.
Well, you specifically said about the gender thing, about how do I raise my daughters so you don't raise them to want to be like men. I think that's kind of what you were saying. I think the main thing to do there is to celebrate them as women and as young girls. And I think society, we are quite good at celebrating male qualities. You know, all the statues, I joked recently, if anyone's been to Rome recently, there's a lot of men, but not a lot of clothes on either, which has surprised me. But it made me think, you know, as a celebration of masculinity, the arts, the books, the science, there's so much that's kind of, the women have kind of coming to only now and really seeing themselves represented in the world. And if you're a young girl and all you see is a celebration of masculine qualities and strength, single-mindedness, focus, all the things that are naturally attributed to men, and men are celebrated for all of those things, in sports and in all kinds of things, culture, etc., and in business and politics. As a young girl, it might feel like, well, who's celebrating womanliness? And what does that mean? You know, we talk, there's a lot of talk at the moment about language, and language really does matter. You know, toxic masculinity is just a terrible idea for young boys. You know, it's just a terrible concept. But there is also room for finding positive language around women. Talk about the power of us. You know, we make human beings in our bodies, our actual bodies. This is remarkable. It still astounds me that we do this, but it's not necessarily celebrated as a strength. Talk about make them feel really empowered in their own bodies, that they value, that they are valuable, that they have value. Because as a dad, I always say this, you have more impact on the choices your children, your daughters will make for friends and partners than anyone else. Mums, you know, they take us for granted. My daughter's just, but Daddy, Dad sets the tone. Dad decides, gives her what she, I don't know, her self-worth, how she relates to, fits into this world. So don't underestimate, if you're a father and you've got daughters, don't underestimate your role in having them really know who they are. Because I tell you, if you don't, they will choose badly. And ask anyone in this room, you can be the most successful entrepreneur in the world, you can have the best business, but if your home life sucks, because you've chosen the wrong partner, it doesn't get you, you've got all kinds of baggage around it, you haven't done the work, it's for nothing. You know it. If you've had a row that morning, everything goes to shit, right? So choosing good friends, choosing good partners, all of that does start with parenting, where you're putting in the good stuff and making them believe in themselves and value themselves, in my opinion.
I second all of that. I'm going to just in the interest of not going deeper on that, take it from the workplace side for all of you that are in companies that can affect this. The workplace is full of what we call conformity codes, and they are behaviours that are expected for you to thrive and win. And sadly, women are adopting masculine traits. Hugely shameless plug for my TED Talk, but it's called Divine Feminine Burned Out, and it's exactly this. It's women are going into workplaces and adopting masculine behaviours to thrive, and it works, and they win. And we are breaking this down in companies now, so these conformity codes that women are stepping into the workplace, which immediately takes them away from their authentic self, which impacts their adrenals, which impacts fertility, hormone function, blah, 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 blah. So if you're in workplaces, I invite you all to really notice these conformity codes. What are the expectations and the unsaid behaviours and rules? And you will find that in most cases, they are led with a masculine energy. So if we can break it down in workplaces, your daughters and all other daughters can show up authentically in their feminine, if that's the trait they want to bring to work that day. Could be a masculine day for them. We all have both. It's not gender specific. But where we can break off those conformity codes, we can help women win.
And if I may, I might answer as a daughter, the eldest of four. A lot of my confidence comes from my family. I am confident because of them, and they are tired of me saying this and giving them that much credit. If anything, my sister thinks it's super cringy that I talk about this all the time. But I can tell you 3 things that my parents, especially my father, did right. One is he is a hyper communicator. So he communicates everything, but he also encourages us to communicate. So if I am angry, if I am sad, if I am happy, he has never stopped me. He has given me the space to be and to do, and then take an interest in whatever that looks like. So that you don't have to pretend to be anything that you're not at home. You can be your whole self, and at least you can be your whole self at home, whatever that looks like. The second is, and there's 2 boys and 2 girls in our family, and we're really blessed now. We have niece and nephew. They haven't generalized, especially in activities. So as we've been growing up, if we want to play sports, if we want to go out, if we want to do anything, they've always encouraged us, but they've been there. Really, really sad example, actually. The first time I went to a club, my dad was outside. And then the second time, my mum was outside. So they never stopped me. They were just there, you know, in case something went wrong. And the second time it did. And I was really uncomfortable. But knowing my dad was outside, not coming into my privacy or trust, but saying, if you need me, I'm here, it was dependable. So be dependable. But give them boundaries. Give them space, but say, look, I'm going to be outside. Should something go wrong, it's the first time you've been to a club. Give me a ring. I wasn't comfortable. We went for a burger after. We had a great time, but at least I knew I could trust him, and he was dependable, right? So communication, take interest, and dependable. And the third thing is, and it goes back to the future of work, people's careers are changing. They're not linear. We have no idea what the future looks like. So the least you could do is take interest in terms of sharing the education you have, but take interest in their interest and encourage them. A year ago, I started YouTube. It is my father who watches every one of my YouTubes. It is him who comments. It is him who probably is the reason that I have the subscribers, because he messaged all his friends being like, she's got a month left, she needs the subscribers, can you subscribe? So they do more than just showing up, they really advocate. And after that, these moments that you have with teenagers and early 20s, I can only speak, you know, on behalf of the journey I went through, that's not personal. That's just life. So if you can help them navigate life a little bit easier in their teens, in their 20s, especially in their 30s, they'll come back to you because they know that you are dependable and that you will listen and that you will communicate. And on a bigger note, if you are thinking of how to show up as an ally, it's very similar. Give them space. Let them showcase their natural ability. Cheerlead them in ways that you can, make introductions, and then carry on going. On that note, I'm going to ask the panel one final question, and that is, what is your one leadership resource that you want to leave people with? And if people do want to connect with you, which I'm sure they do, what is the one question or topic that you want them to ask you?
One leadership resource. Gosh, there are so many. I actually can't think of one. So come and ask me in a minute and I'll think of one. And where to find me on LinkedIn's easiest. Elizabeth Cowper, Cowper. Moo, like cow, and then PER. That's the way I always have to say it.
I guess for me, Women in Alliances, learn a bit more about that. If you want to know about AI, Gen AI, how it's going to impact your jobs, please do that. But for me, just not a resource as a person. I actually have my coach in the room, so Darren Edgar. When I was doing not so well at my job and I had to start all over again, you need someone who's really actually going out there trying to help you and support you in the way that you want. So find that person.
I'm a good resource. I actually mentor CEOs and all male. All my clients are male, and I do this as a bit of a side hustle because I don't get to use these skills that much in my day job anymore. So I invite anybody here who would like to sort of work with a woman on their leadership style if they're a male. I think that's actually something I seem to have found a bit of a sweet spot for. And also, I have a podcast called People Are Everything. That's no surprise, is it, really, given I've mostly talked about people. And my podcast invites people to talk about the 5 people that have helped shape the person they are today. Because anyone who says they're self-made is delusional. So if anybody likes to appear on my podcast, People Are Everything, I'd be delighted to host you.
Vicky took away the mic so I could stop speaking. I saw her and then she gave it back. Just a random thing. I actually really enjoyed Bear Grylls' autobiography, Mud, Sweat and Tears. And I think that was a really good example of somebody who went into a leadership role, of somebody who had to really understand his own faith and understanding the workspaces that he was in, and how he then shows up for people around him. He has 3 boys, so absolutely doesn't have daughters, but I found that was a really interesting book just to reference should you want something from a learning perspective. I do quite a lot of reading, so I can do more. But on that note, I would just love it if you give a big round of applause to our panel. Thank you. Remember to connect with us, 321, come and speak to the panel. Please, if you are not a member already, you should consider being a member of the One Club. We show up like this, we have great conversations, we hold our network down, and we do it all whilst having fun, which is really important for the future of work.
I'd like to thank you all, especially you, Sonya, because you haven't been thanked yet. Big round of applause for the panel.